kids here. On the way in, we came up from Charlottesville. Faculty, we escaped from Northern Virginia. It's been almost 20 years now, hasn't it? Actually, coming up on that. And so it's interesting to come back. But at 10:55, we're still coming in on Route 66. That's about right. But the interesting part was, I was reminded of a cartoon that we had in our Genesis to Revelations class. And the cartoon was a picture of two dinosaurs on this mountaintop with water all around it. And off in the distance, you could see Noah's Ark moving out. And one of the dinosaurs turns to it and says, "Oh crap, was that today?" It's like, they're going to be thinking, I forgot which day it was and I was supposed to be here. So if I'm going to be a witness to Dick Busby, I'm going to start right here. I looked at this picture, and I'd like for y'all to take out your bulletin and take a look at that picture again. I recognize that look. Because if you've been to my house and seen a picture, the day that I met my wife, I've got a smile on my face like that, and I'm looking at her like, aha, way to see you, little girl. Would you like some candy? That's a sailor's way of looking at a young lady, and also at the world, in my opinion. Because when you're looking and people look into your face and see your eyes and you can see them sparkling, you know there's a star out there somewhere coming back at them, and there you are. So I just want you to know that I'm witnessing to the fact that Jesse was in the area somewhere probably when this picture was taken, or he was thinking about it. It's like, hello. We had a lot of discussion. We were in the Genesis to Revelation Bible class. How many of you were in the class? I think there's a lot of hands out there. Yeah, okay. We spent, 30 years going through the Bible. And it used to say Genesis to Revelation class, and we're going to walk through the Bible. Well, we spent 30 years, we crawled through the Bible, didn't we? Literally. But I think we went through it 3 times in that 30 years. And I think the most important part about it was that we all finally understood, I think I had to explain that to this naval officer 2 or 3 times, that BIBLE is an acronym. It stands for Basic Information Before Leaving Earth. And it's important for you to get that information down early and start practicing it. I made the mistake, for about since 2006, down in Charlottesville, there's a Dogwood Vietnam Memorial where we honor the young men from that area who were killed in Vietnam. Having spent 3 years over there, I kind of became tasked with that as a responsibility of service. And yesterday I was giving my 28th talk on one of these young men. And I started it off by saying, for those who have fought for it, freedom has a sweetness that the protected will never know. Think about that. For those who have fought for it, freedom has a sweetness the protected will never know. I think that's part of our problem today. Well, you think about y'all when we're in Spain. Well, the interesting part about Spain is you think back how many years and how many wars and what those folks had to go through. It's to me, I came back home after 3 years in Vietnam, got married, and like Jesse and Dick, started raising a family. And I think we were raising teenagers at about the same time. And one day I think I came in and talked to Jen. I said, said, I think I'd rather go back to Vietnam. Every day there's a new challenge, it seems like. Well, I was thinking about what would I say about Dick. First thing I'd say is that he finally was able to understand that the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, but it's the men's department. And it took him a while to understand that, but we came to understanding something. Had a lot of fun with that, didn't we? But as I told the people yesterday, I said, on November 28th, 1967, I was with my gunnery sergeant, and we were in a place called Con Tien. It was right on the border into North Vietnam. They had closer supply lines than we did. And we were actually walking down the center of a live minefield. To this day, I think Gunny Cunningham and I need to have another discussion about that, but he passed on because he took his skipper out in the middle of the live minefield. But we got almost to the end of that 40,000 mines in there. And all of a sudden I heard this chai, 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 thunk, thunk, thunk. And that was the North Vietnamese starting to hit us with mortar shells. I turned to the gunny and I said, we're in a live minefield. There is nothing but a comm wire here. We've got to get out and see where we gotta go. Don't run. For sure, don't fall. As we started out, they bracketed us. And this is kind of interesting. We were talking about darkness a minute ago. I can still remember that, and to me, it was like the devil throwing things in front of us and throwing things behind, trying to make sure we don't get out of wherever it is we're in. Gunny made it out of the minefield, I didn't. When they bracketed us, the first round landed in front of me about the doorway there. The second round caught me, threw me out of the minefield. The reason I tell you this is because that was the day that I realized that God had a special plan for my life, for Dick's life, and for other people like me. And when He saves you from something like that, call it darkness, call it the devil, call it whatever you want to, you have an obligation to repay that debt. And part of that is to raise your family properly. The other thing is to be an example for other people. And I think lastly, I was on a daily basis thank Him for what He has given each and every one of us. Jesse, you've been blessed with a phenomenal family. I know we had our opportunities to try to figure out whether, I guess, I remember the words we once said, someone said one time that grandchildren are God's gift to you if you don't kill your own. and I think there's some truth to that. There are days when you wonder whether you're going to make it through that one. Well, I think I've witnessed quite a bit here. I've written down a few things. The one thing that we did in Genesis to Revelations, and I really think was very meaningful, every Thanksgiving and Christmas, we used to get the names of families who needed food and needed help. And Jesse and Dick were always there to help us. Jan would go shopping because she could count. And we would get all this food and we'd take it to places, and a lot of us worked together and we'd take that food out there. And to me, that was a blessing. Kind of like what Martin did with all his work and all that stuff for years and years. Today, we don't necessarily get to do that because as you get older, you don't have necessarily those kinds of opportunities. But as Dick went along, I know he had opportunities. I remember seeing him at several funerals, Harold Hicks and others. And as we move into the next stage of life, it's interesting that we look back and think about what we did do and what we did not do during that period. And my wife's saying it's time to quit. But I think the important part is I would rather regret what did do than what I did not do in life. And that's the way I chose it. So, thank you, Dick. Keep that smile on your face and that look, good look. He's like, yes, sir. When a few years ago we went to Spain, and at the time I was doing these stories, and at the end of it I would tell this poem. But the poem I'm going to tell you about here in a minute was on the Isthmus of Gibraltar. At the end of World War I, they found a sentry door at David's Gate, which is almost 2/3 of the way up that big mountain. And a young sentry had carved into that wood door over a period of time a poem. Now we were going to, and I'd used that for several years at funerals I did for Marines and others. So got ready to leave, and Tara, our oldest daughter, says, Dad, you know, you're going to be awfully close to Gibraltar. Why don't you and Mom try to go down there and see if you can find that sentry box? So we said, okay, we're going to do that. So we get to Gibraltar, which was really interesting because first of all, you got to park, then you got to walk across an active airstrip, jets coming in, you have to wait for those to go by. And I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we got over to the other area, and I thought, you know, it'd be all British and all, but it wasn't. There's a lot of people from Morocco and places like that. So I asked several people about this poem, and nobody could give me an answer for it. Until finally, we found this Muslim fellow, and he says, oh, I know where that is, I'll take you to it. So we got in a cab and went up the road, and we come to David's Gate, and sure enough, here's a sentry box. But the wooden door, over time, had rotted away, and there was a plaque. And on that plaque, this young man had written the following. And I think this is really important. It said, God and the soldier all men adore. In times of trouble, and then no more. For when the war is over and all things are righted, God is forgotten and the old soldier is slighted. And I always end up by saying, let that never happen to any of our people, these young men. Let it not happen to Dick. Hope it doesn't happen for me. But the important part about that is we need to keep recognizing and thanking folks, because the greatest service you can do is for your fellow man and to protect them from evil, one way or another. So in conclusion, thank you, Jesse, for asking me to speak. I hope some of these words will help, and I hope that you remember that smile and why you were smiling. I'll end this the way I did yesterday. Rest in peace, Commander Richard Edward Busby. Thank you for your service to your family, to your country, and to your God. Amen.
Thank you, Colonel. Those are heartfelt and knowledgeable words. We do have a moment, I believe, to give to anybody who would like to share a word, and I will bring a mic to you. So if there's anybody who would like to add their word of witness.
What I did. And I have to say that there was never a nicer person to me than Dick Busby. I mean, we hit it off immediately. And part of that, I think, was we were both had a love for baseball. And since no one else mentioned baseball, I figured I'd stand up and say something right there. He was a big fan. He was a Nationals fan. And we would talk every Sunday when he was there. We would talk about the scores or who was doing well or who wasn't. And me being an A's fan, I was usually, taking riffs from him for not being as good as his team, but we were able one time to go to a game together, and I thought that was really special. And I still remember many of the details about that, including the rain. But and it was just always, whenever I saw him, it just made me feel so good just to see him in the Sunday school class. And it was just something special that, you know, you have for people in your life that somehow mean more to you maybe than you realize at the time, but as time goes on, you really appreciate the times that you had with someone. And I just wanted to say just a few words to just acknowledge I remember. And I love it.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else?